Hello, hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. Hope you had a nice week last week, and I hope you had a good start of this week. I I imagine you might have noticed the change. We moved from Mondays to Tuesdays now to launch the episode. But I hope that's good with you. It looks fine numbers wise. It looks like we're getting a similar amount of people listening to the episode, so that's good, right? But yeah, I hope you had a nice week. I definitely had a bit of an interesting one. I think it was very emotional. It was a lot of work that we did, but like a lot of work. I've seen my therapist last week as well. Not this week because of the bank holiday in the UK. I usually see her on Mondays, so that's not happening now. However, that's okay, I think, because I've got a lot to work on based on our last meeting. Yeah, I had a lot of checking the facts was a big one. Please was a big one as well, just to to make sure that I'm looking after myself the best I can. I think I've done all right, um, looking at everything. Like I eat okay. I do. I the sleeping is a bit of a problem back again. I get those like very strange nightmares recently. Um, I'm a bit stressed with work and I think with the whole situation economically. I work part time and then I do comedy and the podcast, and it's kind of like how do you make like things break even, but it's okay, it's getting there, but obviously there is still an ongoing stress. Is the first time when I'm kind of working on like my passion jobs, um, that's challenging. Is I think it's the first time as an adult when I felt this sort of challenges or this sort of um, yeah, just stress and emotion, even though it's quite weird because I've lived on my own since I was 17 and kind of had to look out for myself since then, but I don't think it's ever impacted me, or like again it's not been the same way as it feels now, weirdly enough. I don't necessarily know how to precisely explain the way I feel or the reason why it's different from like you know almost 10 years ago, where I was living on £3 a day and I was barely making enough to pay my mortgage and have enough for food. But somehow it does. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit strange. But yeah, that's been happening last week. It's been a lot of that, a lot of self doubt. You I didn't know where I was going. Also, I felt incredibly melancholic in the last few days because, and it's good to notice the reasons why I am more emotional sometimes than other times. Like, what are the factors near around? Is it tiredness? Is it well? It was a lot of tiredness. I didn't feel energized enough in the last few days, but also I felt very melancholic because. Without even realizing, this weekend it's Romanian is like Orthodox Easter. So yeah, me and my family used to basically celebrate in our the community that I grew up in, and yeah, it was nice. But also I realized how much I miss my parents. They were such a huge part of my life, and yeah, I always feel like it would have been nice for them to be around. I and I think on holidays like this, although sometimes it was very challenging, with things happening around and everything that was going on between them, it wasn't necessarily the easiest part of the year. But I think it was a part of the year around the holidays where they try and make it look like we are doing okay, or like that they don't necessarily spice each other or whatever was going on in their relationship. And yeah, I just remember it like that. I remember having those amazing meals, and um although yeah, I wasn't necessarily a religious person, and but I still used to go to like a Christian Orthodox church, on Easter, and with we just hang out with other kids around there, and although we were doing our own thing and talking about life, or whatever we were doing at school, or whatever, lying about whatever girls we were dating or things that we're doing in our spare time, but it was still a nice time. And I kind of miss it. I mean, not that necessarily, but yeah, just the whole idea of being more dependent on someone else and not have to worry about everything. But that's again another reason why I felt more emotional this week. Um, Now I've tiled a little bit. Actually, no, I didn't tile. I'm lying. I cut some tiles for the floor in the kitchen, which me and my partner. I mean, she's working on, and I'm barely doing anything. But I try to do the cutting. I hate labor work, um, in the respect that I feel very uncomfortable and I get sweaty too quickly, and I just get very irritable when I do it. But I try, I try as much as I can. And again, she's doing most of it, and she's brilliant at it, and it looks really good. But I think that's gonna be enough from me. How about I'll let you listen to the episode with Danny, and we'll get back after, okay? Okay, well, hello. How's it going, Danny?
I'm very good, mate. How are you? You well?
Yeah, I'm
Thanks.
good, thank you, and thanks for taking time to be a part of this.
Thanks for having
I
me,
see
man.
you've been busy gigging a lot recently.
Yeah, yeah. It's a busy time to be me. It's yeah. Trying to do the whole quality over quantity with gigs recently, but I also will do every gig. I'm like, I'll do quality over quantity, and someone goes, "Do you want to perform in a pub to 4 people?" And I go, "Sign me up."
That's actually for people. It's almost double of what I
Yeah, but they're all
I
bringers.
goes into. So
They're
yeah,
not real. They're not real people. They're there against their will. They're there against their will.
that I feel like it's every time I think of a bringer gig, I think of do you know like Johnny Cash in Folsom Prison?
No.
Basically Johnny Cash
Don't.
recorded an album
Yeah.
of country music in a prison.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, that's
Oh my
that's the
god.
whole, yeah, like
That's where
it's a
my career.
genuinely
That's where my comedy career is going. That's
yeah,
my
but
goal.
actually, Anthony Yeselnik apparently he did uh, comedy gigs in prisons as well in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah, I heard this. Like I heard like
Yeah,
people
because
people just doing comedy gigs in prisons. I was like, sign me up.
but that's how I feel sometimes when I think of like bringers, where it's kind of like, well, you're there, you have to, it's your
Oh yeah.
sentence, you have to accept it.
Mate, I've done some gigs in basements where I'm like, this is a prison. They don't want to be it.
Oh my God, I think I heard some seagulls.
Yeah,
How's
I am in
how's
Kent.
wait, which is that Mexico?
What?
I was joking. I was
Oh,
sorry.
I
Is it
was
like
like,
Kent? Like
this is, if people don't know, we're recording this early, and I was not ready for that. Yeah. Well, it's good to know that my mic is picking up the seagulls. They are bastards. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah,
Good. Well, they are
it's all
fucking
good.
assholes, Lev. I'm sort of like, so I'm kind of, I've just moved out of London back to Kent for a little bit with my family, and so they sort of live like 15 minutes from the beach, and so we get a lot of seagulls. They don't here. They're not as feral. They don't like steal your chips in the garden. But 15 minutes down the road, if you go to the beach, I have been chased by a flock of seagulls before.
Shut up.
Yeah. Oh, mate. Yeah. So once one of the most British things I've ever done is it was cold, it was miserable, and I drove my mum and my sisters down to the beach, and we were like, we'll get fish and chips, even if it's really cold. We'll eat it in our coats. And we got on the beach, we opened them, like we're the only ones on the beach because we're idiots. And then a flock of seagulls all just pounced on us, and we had to like wrap up and we're like legging it down. I think I've got a video somewhere as well, like legging it down the
Oh
beach
my
with just a
God.
flock of seagulls behind us. I'm like, Like, I'm like, this is a really relaxing time. We're having a lovely time, aren't we, Mum? She's like, stop making me run. Yeah.
Oh my god. I usually I forget how like the fact that there are so many other places in UK that are like coastal cities, you know.
Yeah,
That
man.
I sometimes I don't know. I used to gig in Liverpool quite a bit, and then um, I'd see seagulls, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
What are the seagulls like in Liverpool? I reckon they're even worse.
They
They're
have a
probably more
Scouse
aggressive.
accent.
Yeah, yeah. Mate, give me your fucking chips. It's like shit.
No, they were, but yeah, they were fine. But I just forget, you know. I'm just like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, they
just like
exist.
every other. Yeah, they exist everywhere.
Yeah.
But you were saying you moved back to Kent. How's because do you gig a lot in London, or do you travel? Do you do outside of London as well?
Yeah, I do. Well, even when I was living in London, because I drive, humble brag. I'm one of those comedians. One of those. I used to travel outside of London for gigging all the time anyway, because obviously, if comedians are listening, they'll know. But if you're not, like basically in London, you've got a lot of the sort of open mic, and you've got like you get a couple of tubes, you do a little gig, and like they're nice. Some of them are better than others, obviously. But as soon as you drive like out of London or go out of London, you tend to get like longer spots. It's like a paid crowd. It's all like there's no one there against their will, like the bringers. Obviously, bringers. Again, I don't know the people that listen, but like a bringer is where like the comedian can only perform if they bring somebody. So you've got like a crowd of 20, but there's 10 acts on. So that means there's 10 people here who are friends. And sometimes those friends are other comedians. So as soon as you get out of London, it's like a paid audience. So I like every month, I'd still do a good chunk of my gigs outside of London too.
Mm.
And also sometimes they're paid as well. So like, yeah, I used to gig. And then when like I gig quite a lot in Kent regardless. So like being back here now, I'm doing a lot of gigs in Kent. But like I still do like Brighton, Ipswich, Essex. I've gone down to Bristol. I sort of just travel everywhere, to be honest. Which is funny because when I do gigs, I run one in Ashford. It's really funny because like I love them to pieces, my hometown, but they have no concept of what comedy really is. Like, as in they'll come to me after the gig and be like, so do you just gig in Ashford then? I'm like, no, because I'm the only one that runs a gig in Ashford. Imagine if this is the only gig I did. Of course I gig everywhere. So it hasn't changed much. Like, been here for a couple of weeks and I've been up to London multiple times. Like, it's working all right, which is good. But yeah, no, gig everywhere, mate. Everywhere.
And you know, because I mean, some other comedians I was chatting with on the pod, they were saying that obviously outside of London, you get more regular paid work, and you get, like I said, like some more like organic audiences. You're coming, you're building up on your first hour show,
Yeah.
so you know, I imagine it helps out a lot to gauge the way. Um, People perceive, I guess, your like comedy or like your stories um, in London and outside, right? So
Yeah.
that's
So I think
helping out quite a lot.
when you're building up to those like longer shows and sets or whatever, like if you're trying to build like your club 20 or something, you can't do that really if you're doing 4 or 5 minute sets. Do you know what I mean? Like because you'll do five and then what your next gig you're going to do the next five that you want to do, but it doesn't work because
Yeah,
them 5 minute sets are good to try out new stuff, like maybe one liners or like the quicker ones, or maybe you wanna try out your new opening for a show potentially. But I imagine it would be. I would love to see someone's first hour where they've only ever done 5 minute sets. Do you know what I mean? That would be a very
yeah.
interesting show. So yeah, when you come out, like I remember I did like one of my first gigs in Kent where I got booked to like headline. I got booked for like 20 minutes and I was like, oh, cool. And I think the longest I'd ever done before that was like maybe 10. But then because of my improv and riffing, I probably did 15. But I like, booked to do 20. And then I got to the end of the 20 and I was like, that's the end. And they all booed and was like, more. And I looked at the promoter and he was like, yeah, crack on. So I ended up doing like 35. of like other
That's
stuff.
amazing.
But you don't get that in London. Do you know what I mean? Because everyone's like, we want to
Yeah.
go home. We want you to do 2 minutes, if anything. So yeah, no, it's definitely helped for like building to those longer shows and getting the longer spots, because I've had a lot more. Like I think I did my second ever gig. I think was like 10 minutes because it was in Kent.
Yeah, you get like
So
such a
yeah, and it's just and that's why it took me a long time. You know, everyone says like get that perfect 5. I didn't do that for the longest time because I was doing longer sets very quickly. And I think that helped a bit. But it was a bit of a hindrance to when I was like, oh, I've got to write like a gong set. And I'm like, I've just got stories. These are
I feel
longer.
like
Yeah.
I do storytelling mostly as well, and I find it so difficult to. I feel like now even when I do gong shows now, I just if the time goes through, which luckily it did more recently,
Oh, well done,
I
man.
just stop.
Where was that one?
The most recent was Up the Creek,
Oh, nice one. Well done,
where I
dude.
yeah, where I just had to like stop halfway through the story but it's so unnatural for me,
Yeah. But
because
then
I'm just like
it's beautiful though, isn't it? Because you're halfway through a story that you've won. And then it's like,
yeah.
if you want to hear more.
Yeah, just link. Yeah, check out my socials and come to my next 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll continue the story.
I'll continue.
Start your next set and go. So as I was saying last week, and everyone's like, "We
Yeah,
weren't there."
yeah. I'll just do literally like a blog, where I'm like every week is. But apparently, I think, and again, it's comic. Discussing like his comedy style. Apparently, Louis C.K. has this thing where he writes like or he used to, because I don't follow him anymore for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But
It's
when
fair enough.
I was reading about him and about like his craft, he was saying that apparently the way he would build up his like hour shows is that every week he would bring a new 5 minutes that he
Yeah.
would try out. And I was like, this sounds ridiculous, because again, like I write almost every day,
Yeah.
but no way.
Well, I don't know, because weirdly enough, I think my first like 20 gigs that were in London that were like a 5 minute spot, which I remember was at the Phoenix Hostel, ran by Elliot Brown and Joe Canchez at the time. Love them to bits. I remember I used to go in with a brand new 5 every single time because I thought that's how you did it. Because like I thought you do your 5. Oh, that was good. So I didn't think to like perfect
Yeah.
it at all. And I remember it was Joe Canchez who pulled me aside and was like, oh my God, like how long you been going for? Like he didn't know. And he was like, you should go do the Top Secret Gong. And I was like, all right. I'm there just like blindly not knowing what's going on. And he was
Yeah.
like, what is your best 5? Because I've seen you do multiple. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, what's your 5? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, right. And he sat me down. He was like, you need to write a 5. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I started like doing the same. Because I had no idea. But bless his heart, like he told me, and he was like, but your confidence. I thought you'd been going a while. I was like, nope. You gave me one of my first gigs in London, mate.
So how did you get into comedy in the first place? Or how did you prepare for it? Or
I did. So I did loads of like acting before, did like musical theatre stuff, did like pantomimes as well. Like I did pantomimes in Kent. I did like a couple of tours of pantomimes in like Wales and Derby for this like company. So I had like a lot of performance experience. Always loved stand up. Like used to grow up watching like Lee Evans. Then got it really into like James Acaster, Bo Burnham. Used to love old style comedies as well, like the older comics like Sean Lark, Bob Mortimer as well. I used to like love watching everything he did on telly. So I used to just love it, but I didn't understand it was a thing. I thought it was acting. So I used to watch Lee Evans. I'll be like, oh, this is just like a version of acting. Like, because I was just watching it on telly. Like, I didn't know. And I was like, what is this? Like, this is a bizarre. So I was pursuing acting, but I wanted to do what they were doing, and I had no idea because like none of my family have ever done stand up. Like I think my granddad was in a rock band once.
oh wow.
Actually, mad story. He nearly he was a guitarist. I think he was a lead guitarist, and he was in a band, and he got an offer from 2 bands, and I've never told this story on a form of podcast before, so this is cool. He got offered 2, and he said that one's not going to go anywhere, so I'll go for this one. He went for the band he went for flopped, and the band he turned down was the Rolling Stones.
Shut up.
Yep, and I was like, my life could have been so different if you would have.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so like that's the only form of like performing in my family. Like my mum, I think, did like gymnastics and things like that. So sorry, sister's going on holiday. Have a good one. Oh, you're not? Can I have a coffee, please? Cheers. That's a bonus of living at home, lads. If you live at home, I've got a mug here. I'm literally on a podcast right now. Do you want to say hello? Say hello to the podcast. Just say hello.
Hello.
That's my sister.
Hello. Hi, nice to meet you.
Black coffee, please. He says, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too.
She
You're
sounds
talking.
confused.
Yeah. Everyone listens to this and can be like, this is the most unhinged. Yeah. Sick of that. Sorry, guys. Sorry, everyone. That was very unprofessional of me.
No, I think it's amazing. That's, you know what?
But that's also my stand-up. If you ever see me do stand-up, that's very much what I'm like. But yeah,
every time I see you...
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, yeah.
No, go on.
I was going to say, every time I think of you, I can't... like, even now, even though I only see your face, which is wonderful, but all I can imagine is just you trying to do the hula hoops, I think.
Oh, yeah, man. I haven't done that in ages,
that's how
That's my hula hoop.
Well,
I call myself the Shakira
you.
of comedy during that bit.
Yeah, that's how I see you every time even if I see like a video of you,
you think of the hula hoop.
I just think of the hula hoops. I can't see you speaking standing still.
You know what? I do miss that bit. I think I did it for so long though, and I was like, you just sort of get tired, and then I wrote other bits that I preferred. But I think for my hour show, I'm going to bring the hula hoop back. It might be.
Nice.
I haven't fully wrote it yet, but I feel like I'd be letting people down if I did an hour and I didn't do the hula hoop. So it's coming back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a whole bit about my mum from Essex who bought a weighted hula hoop, and it's very, very nice.
Oh, it's a great bit. I think for anyone who's listening to this, and again, we do have. I don't know the specifics of like who's listening, but we do hit quite a few numbers, and I don't know how many are comedians or how many are not. But I'd say your bit about the hula hoop, and it's scary for someone who's very unathletic like me to see someone just like do a whole bit while hula hooping. I'm like, this looks tiring. This looks
Yeah, man. Imagine doubling up and doing that twice in one night. Yeah. I was like, oh, my thighs are hurt.
Yeah, you just get like close your rings challenge every single.
Yeah, man. I just put my Fitbit on. I'm like getting my steps in. But so going back to it though, like so I just had like hardly in performing, like in my family, very very supportive family though. Like I've got 3 siblings. All of us do very different things. I'm like the only one that's doing like creative performing stuff. And then it was my friend Emma actually. So she was a director of one of my plays that I did, because I did like a few plays for like National Theatre. She was a director, and she said, have you ever thought about doing stand-up? I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm a bit scared, because I then worked out what it was, and I was like, that sounds petrifying, because obviously you're on stage by yourself. If something goes wrong, you don't have a cast with you. If something doesn't, like I remember in Panto, if a line wasn't funny, I'd say, don't hate me, hate the script, I didn't write it. You can't do that when you're on stage as a comic. So I was petrified. She just went, I'm booking you in. And I'm like, what? She went, yeah, you're going to do 10 minutes at the Gulbenkian Theatre. And I was like, oh my God, because that was also one of the venues I've always wanted to perform at. And like, it's like on a bucket list to do like a tour show there one day. Like the Gulbenkian Theatre in Canterbury is just, it's a gorgeous venue. I just love it so much. And I've been lucky enough to perform there a couple of times as like I've MC'd there and like done a couple of sets there. But yeah, like, so she just booked me in and I was like, oh shit. So then I had to just write 10 minutes. And she like helped me a little bit. And I remember getting there, she was like, how you feeling? I was like, I don't know. And then it went, like, it was still sort of COVID times. So like, there was hardly any audience in, but it was filmed professionally. But it was really fun. I was just like, you do something and you go, I should have been doing this whole time. This is exactly what I should have been doing. So then I just looked at, obviously I was looking at moving to London. No, I was in London, sorry, already. So then I just looked at, obviously, like the Comedy Collective and all this other stuff, and I just managed to book onto some open mics, and that's when I booked onto the Phoenix Hostel. And then it just took over from there, really.
Wow.
Done a couple of acting jobs in between, but it's not my forefront at all. I want to do stand up and I want to perform. I don't want to be silly. I did my first sketch yesterday, sorry, and I'm going to do more of them. So that's bringing the acting back a little bit, but I just want to perform and be a silly boy and make a living through being a very silly boy is my goal. Yeah, that's my goal. I don't care how big it gets. I just want to just be a silly boy and be like, this is my job. My job is to spin my hips like Shakira.
That's a good job to have.
I think so.
I love because I love comedy as well, and I think it's it's a beautiful art form, and it sounds so interesting. It's such a cool thing that I've spoken with quite a few, again, loads of artists, most comedians, and then there are comedians who did, started by doing courses and reading loads, and I think, yeah, I spoke with someone, and they were talking about how she read a book, which, funnily enough, is one of the books that I've read when I started doing comedy.
Oh yeah. What one was that?
It's I think the art of standing up or something like
I
that.
have that. Yeah, I have that as well. Yeah, I've also got. I think one of the first books I read that got me into it was Steve Martin's book, Born Standing Up.
Oh my god, that's a very good book.
Yeah, it's not obviously, if you'll know, then it's not a lot of necessary advice on how to write stand up. It's just his story, and it was I sort of thank you. I was very sort of his journey into performing other stuff and then finding himself doing stand-up comedy, and he obviously tried so many different avenues of he just wanted to perform. And I remember Lee Evans' autobiography as well. I read that, and he wanted to be a serious musician, and then one day he got caught in the mic wire and everyone started laughing, and he was like, do I just do this? And I think those stories of where you find yourself just doing it and you go, maybe I'll just do this, and I find that so inspiring. But yeah, I do find that those books really inspiring completely.
I mean, like you said, it's amazing, and it's good to know that there is not. I think it's not necessarily to know, but it's a good reminder to see that it's never. It's not a right and wrong answer for performing stand up as well. There are so many different ways of doing it, and it's just beautiful to have access to those and to allow yourself to do it. But then, we had this, we chatted a little bit about it before we started recording, but you are on the process of getting diagnosed, or were you diagnosed with the ADHD, right?
Yeah, so basically I've got, I've been, ever since I was little, been told it, and I think I grew up in a generation where when I was at school, that was an insult. A teacher would say you have it, and it's basically another way of saying you're a little shit. And they'd put that. So then I got asked if I wanted to be tested for it when I was 13, 14 maybe. And I was like, no, of course not. I don't want to be medically diagnosed as a little shit. And that's generally how I feel. So I didn't want to. But then one of my friends, she was a nurse, and she that was sort of her job, and I said, and it came up in conversation once. Someone said, "Do I have it?" And I was like, "No," and she laughed and went, "There is no way you don't." And I was like, "All right, calm down." And then so I just sort of, and then I started to just embrace it a little bit, and I was like, "Okay, cool." It explains a lot. You read up on it and you go, "Okay, it explains just why I can't focus on anything at one time," and the struggles with it, I get it. But then also there's a lot of sort of superpowers to it, and I'm like, I get it, it's cool. And then I went through therapy recently, just reached out to a doctor, was just I'm struggling, I need help. And he was and he said, as how I was explaining my situation and how I was coping with it, are you taking your ADHD medication? And I went, oh, I don't have any. And he went, have you ever had any? I was like, well, I don't think I've ever been fully diagnosed. And he went, oh my God, okay. And he sent me through like a form. So I filled like that's out, and it's in, like, obviously everyone knows, like, if you've got it, it's a long waiting list. But I think basically enough professionals have told me I'm riddled, and I need, like, I don't think I'll ever want to take medication for it. I've heard a lot of ups, but maybe some like tips to how to handle some things or whatever. Like, I'd rather do things like that, but I wouldn't be opposed, like, to take meds for it. But I just think, like I said, it feels like at this point, I'm 27 now, it's just my superpower. I love it. I love having it. It's cool. But yes, I'm going through that now, which is fine. It was written, the form was hilarious. And like, because I'm just there going, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how often do you find it to just finish a task? And I'm like, I have put off 4 tasks to do this. I remember it was a question before that. I think I was on TikTok for 5 minutes, and I looked at the next question. It was that. I was like, oh shit.
I think you should have. It would have been funny to just like leave it blank.
Yeah. Can I come back to this? I am busy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, but
So
it
yeah,
sounds. How is it? What has been like? Or obviously, because like you said, you've been like doing so much like artwork, and you stand up comedy for years now,
yeah.
a few years. How has it? How did it feel, or like how do you incorporate, or how do you? Because you were talking about the superpowers, which I think is actually beautiful. It's nice
Mm,
to see something again for the positive, or I guess to see it on a brighter side.
yeah.
But how do you feel like it's been impacting you and like your work? Uh, Even
Um,
look for the good or the better. Sorry, for the
yeah.
bad or the worst. Sorry,
I
so
think.
bad or the worst. Oh God, for the
Uh,
good or the bad.
yeah. I think.
You know how?
I don't know. So I think that the good is definitely you're thinking on your feet and the improv and the creativity of what you've got, because I think anyone who's got it, like, and I don't want to, like, obviously offend anyone, because some people might be like, if they've got it and they've had it for years and they've struggled and they've known they've got it, and they're like, he's not even, but it's, I get it. And also I think the other people who have it, like, we always emulate to each other. We sort of like we're like magnets, like, the creative ADHDers. We find each other in a pub. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know. We're like, you're one of me, which is lovely. And I think it's good. So like when because I MC a lot, it's always helped me with MCing,
Oh.
because I don't know. I think our brains are just wired a tiny bit differently. Of going, like, we're thinking quite fast all the time anyway. So whether it be someone says something and someone else has said something quite similar at a gig before, I'm like, fire the facts, and it's quite quick to like smash it out, or to come up with like a new idea that you find funny, and you're just going, yeah, I'm just saying this because I think it's funny, and the energy behind it just kind of works. And I think it's always helped me and not really been a hindrance. But then also it's the more theory side of things. I think it's I've struggled with, like, sitting down and going, let's dissect this material. I always need to do it with someone to help me kind of ask me
Mm.
questions and go, why is that funny? Where do you want that to go, that joke? Because if I'm sitting on my own, it's like, oh, this is funny, but then I think of a different idea and I start writing that, and then it's kind of hard to keep focused on this one. If I'm sitting down to write this thing, I find that quite tricky. And the same with like any other sort of like other jobs that I do. If it's not performing, like I run like some social media for some pages, and like I create all like the thumbnails and stuff. And the amount of times I'll start a thumbnail and then start on a different one and do this, like, it is hard to do theory based stuff. But I know the performing aspect, it helps, you know. But then also I think there's the dark side of ADHD, where if a gig doesn't go too well, it's kind of hard, because then you're so laser focused on, why didn't that go well? Is it because we riffed too much? Is it because we did this? And that can be
Oh.
quite a toxic trait to come through, because then you're like, oh, I'm shit, I'm awful, I'm the worst person in the world. But the good outweighs the bad in my head. And I think, like I said, if there's like that's maybe why like I need some sort of like tips and tricks of how to get through those moments and those things. So I think I'm very mentally strong, like we've spoke about before, and I speak about on stage about getting mugged a lot. One of the first things I did was write a whole stand up about it, and that was me working through the anxiety of getting mugged.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh shit, but you're never going to get the last laugh because I'm going to talk about this. And I will still be the butt of the joke on the stage, but at least I've owned it in a way. So yeah, maybe it's just like, it's probably an unhealthy way to go. But I think it works. It works for me, you know?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's to try it out. And I look, for example, I was going to tell you that when I was I was doing the dialectual behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
Actually, someone who I met while in a treatment was someone with ADHD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because obviously I think the thing with borderline is that, and again, apparently I'm not, but the borderline, the reason why it's called borderline is because it's on borderline with so many other things. Like it has a bit of like bipolar, a bit of ADHD, a bit of psychotic, etc. And some of the, because that's the thing, it's like what was the word? It's not a, it's a disorder, so it doesn't have to like everything is exactly the same, but some things do much is eventually. So I would say for sure on the back of this, see how you're getting on with your doctor. If not, I can even send you the PDF copy of my DBT book, because it's very good, like skill wise. If you want to have a look at it, it's amazing to help you, give you some advice on like how to process your thoughts. But oh man, also on the back of what you were saying earlier about the getting mugged, and like the first thing was writing a bit.
Yeah.
It's
I think like a lot of comedians can relate to that as well, man.
Yeah.
Like trauma means stories. Like nobody like I heard a really good like theory and quote. It was like, I think it was from Jake, actually, Jake Patrick, who is one of, and if he listens to this, he's going to be like, yeah, I don't like to big him up too much because I love it. But he's one of my favourite comedians on the circuit, and genuinely is one of the best writers I know. And he sat down with me and we wrote about it, like helped me write a couple of like bits, because I just had ideas and I was like, I don't know what to do with it. And he basically said, you have to lose. Of course, you have to lose in your stand-up, but people also want to see you win. Because if you're like self-deprecating, when you watch a film, you want to see the little guy win sometimes. And like, you can't be just losing. So when you're writing these things about trauma, you do need to win. You need to win sometimes. And he was like, and he did say, like, that's why in your mugging bit, I really like it, because you win. But you win because you lost. Like, you lost so bad, because obviously, like, I won't ruin the whole bit, but it's basically about me I'm too broke to get robbed. I didn't have anything for him. And he was like, so you lost, but you won because you didn't get mugged. And that's what I personally like about that bit as well, because it toys on the line of, damn, this is an awful thing to happen, but why am I so happy about it? Like, why am I happy about this? Like, I'm too broke.
I had a thing where I'm trying to, and I'm still like writing it. I'm trying to incorporate it, but it's about I got scammed online once.
Oh, did you?
And it was my fault, man, because I was
was it a sweet prince that wanted you to send him?
No, it was even worse. Basically, I was trying to download, and I remember everything very clearly. I tried to download Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my days! You got mugged off by Freddie Mercury. He's like, "Hi, Freddie here. If you want my song."
No, the movie.
The
when
movie!
it came out.
I thought you meant the song.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I was like,
trying
Levy,
to
do you not have
download
YouTube? Do you not have Spotify, lad?
No, I was trying to download the movie because I was flying back to Romania for Christmas, actually.
Yeah.
And I went on like torrent and tried. And look, I'm really sorry. I own it now on iTunes. So before I get arrested for copyright.
Listen, we've all tried it. Don't be a dick. Yeah, I mean,
and I tried to download it on BitTorrent, and then this link comes up saying that, oh, if you want like super fast speed, it only costs $1. Put your credit card details here.
Oh
And a part
no!
of me was like, oh, $1, that's so cheap.
What a deal!
And yeah, I put my credit cards in, and then the next day I get like notifications from my banking app going like, oh, we have to block we locked your account because of suspicious activity.
Yeah, of
And,
course.
and anyway, the whole bit is that basically, I think when the scammers found out how much I already had on my overdraft and the credit card debt, they were like, if anything, I think they started transferring money onto my bank account
Yeah,
from other people just to be like, look, I hope this helps out a bit.
yeah, like
Um,
that. Because
but yeah,
I had a similar bit of because I've been mugged a few times. And before the story where I was too broke, I basically had my wallet nicked. And I basically I had it nicked in a pub, but I was performing at Dabber's Bingo, and I was doing the hosting for that, and I was doing their brunch show and the evening show in Hackney, and in between I just went to the pub to watch the Arsenal game, and then I got back to work for the evening, did the whole show, and at the end of the show I had a Monzo thing going, your card has been declined. And I was like, what are you on about? So I clicked it because I was like, I've been here.
yeah.
It was like, it's been declined for £5 at McDonald's. And I went, oh, they have pickpocketed the wrong guy. You can't even get yourself some nugs on my account, lad. Silly bastards.
Oh
You just
my
robbed the most broke comic on the circuit, lad. Wrong guy. Wrong guy.
Also, imagine just going to Mackey's and being like, yeah, sorry, it's been rejected, and try again.
It
Been
was so
rejected.
bad, mate. Yeah. But then they found the
Okay, can I have
credit.
a look
They
at the
got some shit.
savers menu?
Yeah. It's just like that cheeseburger. It's like, no,
Yeah.
sorry.
No.
Sorry, this guy is struggling.
Yeah. If anything, when they do the donation bit at Mackey's, they should be like, "Oh, would you like to actually donate on this bank account?"
Yeah, he needs it. Do you want to buy him a
You need to.
cheeseburger? So next time he comes in, it's prepaid.
Oh God,
Yeah,
man,
man.
this
So
is
bad.
wild. But I see it, because I sometimes, and also I think, yeah, Jake is. I haven't seen him in ages, but I think he's such a good comedian. He's a lovely person as well. I remember I chatted with him a couple of times after gigging with him,
Yeah.
and he's always been very, just very nice to be around, and
You'll
he's
have to get
definitely
him
got
on
like
this,
very
man.
good
He'll
stories.
do that. He'll do. Right, you have to get him on. He
Oh,
is.
he's
He
on
has got
he's
some.
on the list.
Yeah, he has got some. Mate, like, I don't want to shoo people away from my episode, but I reckon his is better.
Well, they have to listen to this first before,
Oh, that's true.
anything.
Well, that's something
Yeah,
to look
so
forward to. He's more professional than me as well. I don't reckon he'll get his sister to make him a coffee mid-podcast either. So,
no, I think that's incredible. I love this because again, it's all about looking natural. I'm not about editing stuff and like making it look good. However, obviously, you have a lot of podcast knowledge as well because you do
yeah,
your own podcast. How is that
I
going?
do. Yeah, so I one of the 5 co-hosts to the Wrestle Club podcast, hosted by Sakisa Twix, the legend, one of my really good friends. We basically it started off me, Sakisa, Ibs as well, Ibs Sesse. If you don't know him, look him up, love him. If you don't know Sakisa, look her up. Actually, what are you doing? But we all just love wrestling. And there is like a big fan base of wrestling fans in the comedy circuit too. And we just spoke about it a lot, like at gigs and things like that. Like, oh, you watching this? Oh, pay-per-views coming up. And then we started watching the pay-per-views like together. And I remember once we did like a little thing when we recorded all of us watching one of the pay-per-views, and we like did some predictions and things. And basically we just were like, we all love wrestling. Wouldn't it be cool to do something with it one day? And then Sakisa turned around one day and was like, I'm going to start a podcast. Do you guys want to be some of the co-hosts? So you've got Mark Cram as well, who's a legend, Richard Wright, gorgeous man, Ibs, and me. So it's not 5 actually, 5 in total. And then Sakisa said, yeah, we get on like guests. We had like Ed Gamble on, one of our first guests. We've had some like wrestlers coming, like Michael Oku, who is like the Rev Pro heavyweight champion at the minute, and all these people. Like, so we get some like wrestlers on and comedians on, talk about wrestling, talk about the week of wrestling. But like, it's one of them where people like we're doing good for number. We've only had like 16 episodes, and it's going like so fun. We're going to be. This goes out in April, right? So we're in May. We have been asked to go to Restival, which is like a wrestling festival at Pleasance in London, and we're doing like a live version of the podcast, and we're also helping run. It's called Lethal Lottery, where basically I can't remember exactly how it is, but it's. I think the audience get to sort of choose the wrestlers' opponents, and we're like hosting and commentating on that. So it's so fun to do something that we all like, we love. And comedy we all love, and we're managing to put something together. And we're the only UK wrestling podcast that's hosted by comedians. So it's a different perspective. Like, we wind up the wrestling like nerds. Like, we're like, oh, actually, you don't watch all of the products. It's like, there's like 7 wrestling companies. That's so many hours a week, and we do other things. You nerds. No. So it is fun to watch and listen to. Like, my mum listens to it. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it's really funny. Like, so there's other elements to it. We like wind each other up and talk about different things. But it's been such a fun podcast to be a part of, like, because it's away from comedy too, and it's been really good, mate. So that's Wrestle Club podcast, and we have a great theme as well. It's like Wrestle Club podcast. It's great.
It looks amazing, you know. I think from everything that I've seen so far, it just looks wonderful, and it's such a, like I said, and I think the comedic perspective, I'm being biased now, you know, but I just think it's incredible. I love it because I love when comedians talk about anything in general, just because it makes it. I feel like it makes it more human. And here, in the regards of, you know, because I feel like sometimes if you're like I don't know, like a political broadcaster or whatever, you sometimes have to, like, it doesn't feel as human, you know, when you're like a sports analyst, you know, it doesn't feel as personable, while when a comedian does it, I feel like it's good because it brings that nature of like, oh, that looks a bit silly, or you know, like it's there is no fear
we just have
of
a
saying,
different we have a different perspective on life too, right? So, like, a really good example of that is there's this huge allegation thing happening at the moment in wrestling. So Vince McMahon is like the big dog. He owns WWE, or like his step back.
Oh,
now.
I know. I used to watch WWE.
Yeah, people listening might not. Right? So he's basically the big dog, right? There's been allegations recently, just about like between him and like getting female wrestlers to do various things in order for them to progress and all this stuff. And I remember, like, it was huge news, and all these other like podcasts going, we don't want to make light of it. This is serious, and which is the right thing to do. When we addressed it, there was obviously a moment where we were all like, but the comedians, and Mark Cram handled it perfectly. Like, it's a clip on our thing, we look at it. Basically, Vince McMahon has grown a mustache just before the allegations, and Mark Cram just goes, listen, I'm not making light of this awful situation, however, are you really going to grow that mustache just before this? You look guilty before. It's a 1940s villainous mustache. And we're just like pissing, because it's like we're the only pod that would take the piss out of it, but still do it in a way where you know that we're taking it seriously, but we have a duty to try and make light. And I was really proud of that, because when we posted that reel, I was like, oh, we're going to get a backlash. And we got none. 0 backlash. Nice. Everyone was like, yes, that is perfect. And you're like, good, because that's why we're here, to be a bit of light relief on like wrestling as well. There were some brilliant other wrestling like podcasts, don't get me wrong, like they're all fantastic, but I think when it comes to those situations where we have a different perspective on life in general, I take it when the Queen died, every comedian had their notebook out and was writing shit. Do you know what I mean? We just have a different perspective of going, we can make this funny. We can make this an issue.
Even like one of the funny. Okay, obviously the Queen, it was a huge one, but I remember when the news about like King Charles, you know, came out with being diagnosed with. I remember getting a notification on my phone at like 5 p.m. and on the same evening at like 8, I was doing a gig. And I think out of the three comedians that went on before me, two of them and the host already had
Yep.
something
Yeah.
about which again, it wasn't because this is where it's like, oh, well, there is a fine line. I agree, there is such a fine line, but in comedies where it's permitted to, again, as long as it's well written, and they were brilliantly written, like
Yeah.
the little like side things they were. Oh, and also, by the way, on the back of that, because I was mentioning earlier that I do know I used to watch WWE when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
grew up with like Raw, and like SmackDown versus Raw was actually one of my
Nice.
first games on the
Yeah, that was
PS2.
great games, man.
But if you know Liam McCallenden, he's the
Yeah.
lead singer for a band called the Birches.
Oh yeah.
He's a huge
He's a big
wrestling
wrestling
fan.
fan as well.
Yeah,
You
and
know
I
what?
remember he's the
Well, we had a message request. I don't know. Can I say this? I'm not gonna. I won't say a name just in case because we might not get him on. Because I don't think I know him. But I know him through my musical theatre days, and I got a message request through on the Wrestle Club, just going, big fan of the pod, big wrestling fan. If you ever want like this music artist, and I'm like, I know him. When I did music, I used to teach musical theatre. We got him in once to do like a workshop with the kids, and I'm like, I see. Like,
no
that's what I mean.
way.
There were so many people, and this is the other thing with the podcast. Like, so many people will come up to us individually. As Sakisa said it perfectly, she was like, we've got people coming up to us at gigs now going, so what do you think of this has happened on Resident? And you're like, oh, you're a fan, are you? No, all of you were scared to admit you're fans, and now turns out you're all watching it, dickheads. But it is interesting the amount of people that do still watch it and like are just fans, and because like you've got this whole it's fake, and I get it. Like I'm not one of them who get like butthurt at people saying that, but I just show them some matches and moments where they go, how did they fake that? I'm like, that's not fake, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like the outcomes,
Yeah.
yeah, they're all premeditated, or there are moments where before they go out they sort of agree on spots. But like for example, like in AEW, John Moxley had kebab skewers pushed into his head, and they're in his head, and he's bleeding, and you're like, it's not fake, is it, lad? You know what I mean? Like that happened. You saw him slap him into his head, and he didn't stop until it was lodged in his head. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not fake. But so yeah, it's interesting, man.
I think
I love it.
also I think that even if it's even the idea, it's such it's a nice combination of arts and sports. Even if it's like
Yeah.
you said, there are scenarios and everything. So what? Like people watch movies for the exact
Well,
same reason,
exactly, man. Like,
where
I once had somebody literally like go, "Why do you even watch that? It's not entertaining." And I was like, "What do you watch?" And they're like, "Oh, I love EastEnders." I'm like, "Fuck off, then." What, you think Phil Mitchell's real? What the fuck are you on about? Well, when he punches Ian Bill and puts his head in a toilet, you're like, "Oh, it's real! I can't believe he did that to Ian." Fuck off! Like, piss off!
the
Like,
thing
how
about
dare
that with
you
the
tell somebody else what to not enjoy because you think it's fake or silly? Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
doesn't matter.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like, whatever you find interesting, whatever you enjoy watching, we all enjoy wrestling. A lot of people actually do. I think if people actually watch some of the new stuff now as well, they'd be like, "Oh my god! Like that guy just did 3 flips in the air and like dives off the top of a cage. That is interesting." And they're doing it. There's no camera trickery. There's people jumping off of. We saw there's a company called Progress, and it's in Camden, and I highly urge anyone to go watch that. It's not too expensive either. Like, they're a great company, and we saw someone get put through a glass table, and it shattered everywhere, all on the front row as well. Real glass, man. Like, and you're like, it's great fun watching it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's great. And also, if you've never watched it live, you don't know the energy, like the vibe, like people shouting shit out as well. Like wrestlers get heckles, and like it's brilliant. It's so good. It's so fun.
May I think of oh my God, I think of one of the people that I met when I did a TV thing in Romania,
Oh
and
yeah.
I met this guy called Ozzy Blood.
All right.
He's such a lovely guy. We're very good. We're very good friends. But we spent time there with good friends, and we went out for food after. Anyway, he's basically in the Guinness record. book
Oh shit!
for basically because he's basically lifted his own weight or through his nose.
Oh my days!
Yeah, he does those like really like
That's insane.
crazy stunts, and he lives in America, but he travels all over the world doing those stunts. I think he was in Italy when he got in the Guinness Record book, and I just think about like there are people who just test their bodies and like, and also like he goes to gym and
Yeah,
he basically like does pull ups, using his basically
nose.
his nose.
Oh my
Like he
days!
trained. Yeah, it's stuff like this where now when I think about even when wrestling, when you were like, oh, is that true or is it? It can be true because again, like he sometimes he like puts like needles through his skin and things like that,
Yeah,
but because he's practicing and he knows like where to go, like
and
he
pain
swallows
thresholds
swords.
too. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
people, yeah, you can't. You know what I mean?
he
Like,
gets I think he had some I think it was actually was this maybe Simon Cowell, maybe I make it up someone anyway, like a very famous British like in Britain's Got Talent, he got like to sorry America's Got Talent, to basically like put a sword up his throat,
oh my days!
and by the way he pushes it because he
He
knows where like
knows.
how to
Oh,
feel it.
that's mad.
Yeah, I'd say check him out, and
Yeah,
he's
well,
such a, and again he's an amazing person. He's such a lovely person when you see him when you meet him off stage. He's a wonderful human being.
gorgeous.
But yeah, he takes his body to like those limits.
Yeah, yeah,
So now when I think about wrestling, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. There are
yeah,
people who would again because you know how to take that impact so that it
yeah,
damages you the less or like it harms you. Yeah,
yeah.
it's wild. And I
And don't get me
remember
wrong, there are moments where like they're getting punched, and you can see it's not a real punch. Of
punch.
course, like
Yeah,
don't get it twisted. Like, and I'm not saying everything they do hurts, and is
yeah,
like there are moments where you're like, oh, and they're like just sort of go near, or they've got like an open fist. But then there's some things they do, like slam them down. Like the ring isn't a fucking bouncy castle. It's like normally like a thin gym mat on wood.
yeah.
Like that's gonna still hurt. Like
Hurt.
the impact is gonna be like, oh, hello. But they know how to sort of prep their body before they land and to reduce the impact a bit. But people get injured in
Yeah.
wrestling like all the time, all the time.
I
So
mean, exactly. It's a beautiful sport, and I think I
it
also
is.
like the way I've seen your the podcast going as well. It looks so beautiful, and
Thank you, man.
it's
Yeah,
just
we're really proud of it.
it looks like a good fun as well. Like I've seen actually Ibs is coming on this as well.
Oh, is he? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. In a couple of weeks, he's gonna be no, actually about a month from now, he's gonna be on as well. And I just think that yeah, it just looks great, and like
No, Ibs is great.
you get all these but yeah, so obviously you're doing the comedy, you're doing the
Hmm.
podcast,
Yeah,
you're preparing the whole hour,
I am.
for the
Yes,
first time, and then
first
hopefully
hour
many more
special.
times.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
How
Yeah, so that, by the time this goes out, I would have done the first one because it's at the end of March in Herne Bay, like the first like mini festival, and I'm doing. Yeah, so I'm doing. I don't know. Basically, so my Instagram's Red Scott Chili Peppers, and I've had that for the longest time. So I wanted sort of like an homage to the band because I've seen people type in red on Instagram and my name comes up before the band, and that's quite funny. And I'm like, whoa. um, but so I've called my first hour special Daddy Fornication, which is obviously a play on words to Californication. And the poster at the minute is my face on a chili pepper. And my plan is I don't think I'm going to mention Red Hot Chili Peppers at all. I'm not going to even reference everything. But yeah, so I've got that coming up. And then that will be the first of many drafts, I assume. I'm not one of them comedians who whack out hour specials for no reason. Like I think sometimes that's a bit of a disrespect to comedy and the graft and the journey. Like I'm not like it's my first time of doing an hour where I go, right, I'm happy with this. Let's do. There's going to be like 20 odd versions of it, I imagine, before I take it as like a debut to Edinburgh. Like I'm not at that stage, I don't think, where I'm good enough to do that. Like I just want to try it out and see what happens. I think when you're at a stage where you think you can do an hour and someone offers you it, take it. Why not? Like, but don't don't be too like, I don't know, in my head, this is probably the self-belief in me, where I just go, if I'm going to do it in places like in clubs in London that I really respect, like Top Secret and that, I just want it to be a really good show before I do that, and have a bit of faith in it and be like, I know what it's about now, where there'll still be changes, but this is, in Kent, where I've been offered some opportunities to do it. It's a nice opportunity to just like write it and give it a go. There's going to be a few things in there that aren't traditional straight stand-ups. Obviously, if anyone's ever seen before, I do some weird stuff anyway. So I'm going to do that. There'll be some like potentially music elements and like a PowerPoint probably at some point as well. Just things like that. Yeah, because I've done them before. And they've worked really well. And for me, I like to do things that I enjoy doing in my shows. Like, if you enjoy it, they'll enjoy it. So I've got different elements to break it up with my chaotic energy. So yeah, I'm excited for that, man. I'm excited for my first hour at the end of the month. I should probably sit and work it out and write it, but bring the hula hoop back. So yeah.
Oh my God, I can imagine you just the whole hour on the hula hoop, like even doing the slideshow.
Yeah, just
hula
keep doing.
hooping.
Jesus Christ! No, I can say this is an exclusive. That is not happening.
Okay, I'll
not a
yeah,
joke.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you, I'm just speedballing now.
I
ideas.
will die, Levi. Don't. So yeah,
but I think
that's fun.
Go on, sorry.
No, I'm just saying it's fun.
No, I was gonna say I think you're such a because you're such a brilliant act, and
Thank you, man.
You're one of those people who uses like creates the energy in the room rather than needing energy before something goes on. So I think it will be so interesting and like so exciting to see that. And I respect what you were saying about the whole respecting your craft, respecting the craft in general, where you're like, am I happy with this? And I think I don't know if you know like Rick Rubin, the musician.
Yeah,
Rick Rubin is such a wonderful music. Again, just like an artist person, and his book is one of my favorite things that I've read. And he said something about how, because I think sometimes I get in my head where I'm like, oh, I want everyone to like my comedy.
Yeah.
But then he had this thing in a book where it's like, you're the only person whose opinion matters, and then everyone else, whoever follows.
Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about like building up hours and things like this, you gotta be the one who's like, I believe that what I'm giving, it's the best. I'm happy with the work that I've given. Like I'm happy. I see everything that I do in here, right? So I think the way you see it is just wonderful. And again, it's not to say there is a right and a wrong way.
Like I said, everyone can do. There's some people that will probably do an hour, 5 gigs in, and it might work well. It's a personal journey, and I just think, for me, like I said, if I do anything, I want to be like, yeah, I'm proud of this. I'm really chuffed. I've worked really hard on it. I know there'll be moments where you're really proud of something and 2 people will turn up, but like for me, it's like you say, like it's very, very kind of you say with the energy stuff, but like because I get comments a lot about my energy in general of just like, how have you got that much? Because I do like kids parties as well. I do dabbers bingo. I do stand up. I've got all this like, and every single one, there's not a lackluster of energy in any of them I do, So like for me, yeah, I like when I get on stage, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it's my duty and responsibility to try and get them to where I want them to be, So, you learn that when you do gigs and you don't always have a good like MC, and it's your job to be like, well, I've got to fucking do it, or I've got to bring them up and get them to my level, or maybe the crowd are just tired and they're hungover, and you're like, oh shit, I'm loud and very high energy. They're not going to like me as much. But then they slowly realise, oh shit, well we've got to, you either join the journey or you are going to hate it. So you kind of got to double down and be like, this is it, and then it's why you write some things to sort of get them on board. But I like to think when I do it, like where I'm doing my first one in Herne Bay, I've gigged in Herne Bay quite a lot in the same venue, and they do get a lot of repeat custom, and I get a lot of lovely comments from the audience there. So I'm hoping, like, you know, I get a few of them come, and they're like, "Cool, we know what he's about, so it's not going to be a shock, but it will be a shock
Yeah.
to some people, I imagine." When I'm like, "No, fuck me," I know that will happen, but I love them reactions sometimes. Like they're some of my favourites, you know. And I'm doing like my first tour support this year as well, which is super exciting. And I'm doing that for Sakisa, so I'm doing like Southampton and Leeds, and that's like this year's just, there's a few things this year that are like, it's, you know, you notice a little shift and you go, oh, okay, some things are happening, and I need to keep going. I need to keep it up. Which, by the way, go see Sakisa's tour. I've seen the show and it's amazing. It's called Hear Me Out, and it's on her the links in her socials. Like, please go. But yeah, it's great, mate. It's really great. It's all good.
Well, you know, it's been wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you,
It's
man.
been
Also, time has flown. This has been a lovely conversation. This is a great pod, and
Well, you
you're a
enjoyed it.
lovely person. You are, and I hope you. I would like to come back and do a part 2 because I feel like we could talk for fucking years.
For sure, because I was going to say we haven't even covered some of the other things I wanted to talk about, which
Oh,
is
really?
good because again,
That
like
is
I said,
my
it
bad.
gives. No, it's not because I wasn't expecting, but it's just the fact that I was like, oh, follow up to this and this and this. However, I would love to, once the house gets all like set as well, I'd love to even have you in person in the office, and you know, we can
Gorgeous.
record. However, what else I was going to say is that you got so much stuff going on, which is brilliant, and I'm very, very happy for you. And
Thank you so much.
obviously, you've got a comedy night as well that you're doing in London
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah. So
Is
I've
it still
got.
going?
I help. Yeah, so I do Shtick Comedy Club in London. So I run that with Tasha Klusky and Jake Patrick. We run that together. It's the idea of that night. Obviously, we took it over from Craig Smalls, who I adore as well. So we just wanted to try and emulate what he was doing with that night. It's an open mic, but we want it to feel like a professional space where people go, "This is really cool," and that's in Kentish Town every Wednesday and Sunday. We're really proud of that night, and I love just having a space where we can go and play. Playing on stage for me is my number one thing. So I want acts to feel like they can play. And I run a pro night in Ashford in Kent called Comedy Tapas, which is only that night has been something that I remember I got told very early on by a promoter that I will not say his name, but he runs a night which is long, and he said. I remember when I said about, because I got approached to do a comedy night in my local pub in South East London, he was like, "You should not start your own night until you're about 2 or 3 years in." And I was like, well, I've already said yes to them when I was drunk, so I'm going to do it. And it was the best thing I'd ever done. I was only 20 gigs in when I started that night, which is very early. You should not be doing that. You shouldn't. I wouldn't recommend it. But I think because I have this like natural kind of like MC and ability, I think, of just being like a silly boy. And I generally have like a vetted interest in people. So like when I talk to people in the crowd, I generally want to know. So like when I started that night, that's grown, and then we did like a charity night, and I got James Acaster on it, and it was like a huge thing for me where I was like, oh my god, like I'm like, I've looked up to this guy for a long time, and I've been very lucky to have multiple people on who I have no business having on my nights. And then like the James Acaster one was in London, I run it in Ashford in Kent, and now acts travel to Kent to do the night because it's held at Coachworks, which is just outside the station. And I've got acts like I had Olivia Lee down. I used to watch her on Balls of Steel when I was a kid, and I'm like now bringing her on stage to my feral fucking hometown. And we've got some amazing people coming. April 26th is the next one, and we've got Grace Campbell coming to headline that, which hasn't been announced, but obviously it will probably be announced before this is out. So, and that's a huge like. These milestones, it's really nice bringing something back to my hometown, and I'm really, really, really proud of that night, and I'm really proud of, you know, it's nice like because I get people coming to those crowds and they like look at the night and they're like, wow, this is cool. He's from here, and it's a generally like lovely time to do that, and I'm excited to see where that goes for the next year or two, because there's some acts that want to come down who I idolised when I was growing up, and now I'm just talking to them on Instagram, and I'm like, right. So I'm still, the love I have for stand-up comedy is so high. So I still get so excited and gassed that I'm like get to do some of the things that I'm doing already. So yeah, I do still run nights. I tend to MC a lot of them, which is also funny. Like, cause I don't, have you done any MCing before?
I've done it a couple of times, so I'm not
Fair,
a yeah.
yeah,
I love doing my comedy. If I'm being honest, I'm very
yeah.
selfish like
Fair,
that.
but the thing is, like, because that's the other thing with MCing, you can't be selfish. It's about the night, not you,
Yeah.
and which a lot of MCs don't know. It's like, I'm gonna do lots of material in between every act. This is my work in progress show, but with acts in the middle. You shouldn't do it like that. But it's funny because after the gigs, people go, "Oh, do you? Would you ever try stand up yourself?" And I'm like, "I do." I didn't just stumble into MCing, you mug. Like, that's not how MCing works. But it's it's something I generally love to do, MCing. I think it's I don't know. It's just an art. It's a different art form in stand up in itself, and it's really really fun. And
Well, you
especially
see,
when you've created the night yourself, you've done the lineup, you've made it like nice and mixed, and like you're keeping the audience on their toes. You see everyone do well, and you get this overwhelming sense of pride for the night and all the acts, and you're like, yes. And I think if you didn't give a shit about that, your night goes, you know.
well, you see, this is why I don't MC is because I at some point when I think actually after I moved to London, I started like doing some gigs and stuff, and I was like, oh, I could MC, but then I
Yeah,
realized I don't want, because I agree in everything that you said. The definition of like being an MC is kind of like you're an entertainer and you're the person who glues the night together.
yeah,
I'm not good at it, and I have, even sometimes you're like, well, if you want to learn something like I do with the podcast, every week I learn something new, like editing, advertising, etc.
yeah,
Right? But I don't want to learn that.
yeah. Fair.
And
It's fair
I
enough.
I came I came to the point where I'd rather focus on doing my comedy and doing my bits and like working
Yeah,
on what I really want to do. And in my head, I'm like, no, I allow the platform of emceeing to people who actually have a genuine interest and want
yeah,
to, because I agree with you. I wouldn't say that I'm not a fan at all of people thinking that, oh, I'm just gonna do my material in between, because it takes
yeah,
away from everyone else's. I think one of the first pro gigs that I did in Manchester,
yeah,
the MC on the night said that if the MC is funnier than the comedians, that's a bad MC, and it
yeah,
kind of like stuck with me.
yeah.
Where I
It's
was like,
true. I think that's
again,
really true.
yeah, material wise, it's like you
Yeah,
shouldn't try material. It shouldn't be, you can be like have a funny interaction, but if you are trying to take over, and I think that's the problem, because if I am to MC, I would probably try to go to the point where I'm like, oh, let me tell you this joke. Oh, let me
yeah.
tell you this joke, rather than
I think
again listening. So
the blueprint of it for me is what, like, because I do get some acts come up to me and like, I'm going to MC for the first time. You got any advice? I generally go, look, start the night, introduce the night, do a couple of jokes at the very top, because you're getting the audience used to what a joke sounds like with a punchline and know when to laugh. Then get to know a couple of people, and then from that point on, you're their mate. Like, you are talking to them, checking they're okay, doing what you need to. If, like, yeah, you can sort of do a little bit of the whole, I know the next act's low energy, so I might go high, so there's a bit of a juxtaposition. Or maybe you want to do the other way, you want to bring the energy down so they're ready. Or you should know your crowd, and like psychologically, like, you know roughly what they're about. But basically you need them to be comfortable to be a bit silly and feral. So I, like, last night I did a gig and they were so uniformed. I was like, give me a cheer. And they're like, woo. And I was like, no, I want. And I was like, no, let's. I was like, you're allowed to have fun. And I was like, getting them to go, "Ah," and I was like, cool, that's the energy. So they know it's okay to like let a laugh out. It's okay to get involved if the comedian talks to them. Like, that's your job. And then if you're having like two breaks or one break, after the break, if you want to do again, like if you've got a small bit that's like less than 2 minutes long or something, or maybe even like less than 5 if it's a story, and you want to tell that story, that is also okay. But don't be like, I'm going to do all these bits. Like, you can just go up, chat, get them ready, and that's your job. It's not to go, well, I've got 3 10-minute bits I want to try, so I'm going to try them at the start of every section, you know? Like, I've done it multiple times, but they're normally the bits. The first bit of the night will be something I know works, and then the other two will be maybe newer ideas that I don't know are good. And if it doesn't go well as an MC, you go, and this is why we've got a whole lineup of acts for you, mate. Sometimes they're not great, you know, and things like that. And that's like a nice self-aware thing where they're like, cool, we know what we get ourselves in for as well. So it works both ways. So
Mate, that was actually, if anything, that was for anyone who would be listening and it's a comedian or
yeah.
that was like such a beautiful definition of MCing.
Thank you, man.
Well,
I'll start an
Danny,
MC course soon. How about that? Charge
perfect.
everyone £700.
That's what I say. If you have like a discount link or something in the
just meet me after
like
a gig in a pub and ask me, mate. It's free.
That's if you get pretty drunk, then you'll be like, yeah, of course you can.
My price is
Anyone...
1 pint.
But it was lovely chatting with you, honestly.
Gorgeous
and
chatting to you,
I
mate.
freaking love this. And so one last time, where do people find you? So everyone knows.
Instagram and TikTok is Red Scott Chili Peppers, SCOTT. All my stuff's on there, like little reels and clips. I do have in the link in my Instagram is like a link tree where I will tend to post where like my gigs are and stuff. But the best thing to do is just to message me. And on Facebook, it's just Danny John Scott. So yeah, you just find me anywhere. Follow Wrestle Club podcast as well. There's all the stuff on there. But yeah, just find me and message me and let me know, and I'll let you know. There we go. Nice and easy.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
You too, mate. Love you. Mwah.
Love
Cheers.
you too. Mwah.
Good.
Cool. Well, that was probably one of the sweetest way to end an episode. I think that was the sweetest one so far, for sure. Yeah, make sure you follow Danny on social media and the wrestling podcast. You know, if you're wrestling fans, it's really fun. It looks good. I'm not I'm not keeping up with it with wrestling as a general thing, but I do come across their reels and their little like videos online, and they look brilliant. So make sure you check that out, as well as making sure you check out Danny's socials, because he's a really funny guy, and he's a lovely person, and I think he's just genuinely funny and very caring, and it's just nice to be around and to watch him, I guess. But besides of that, I've got a busy few weeks coming on with loads of gigs and loads of competitions for comedy and stuff like this. So I'm really excited about that. And obviously, I'll keep you all posted on how it's going. And you might be able to tell by the tone of my voice or the way I start, the next episodes. If it sounds like I'm mumbling and crying, then probably it didn't go well. But if I'm overly excited while I'm talking, then you will know that it's gone well. So that's it for now. And yeah, I'll catch you next week. Bye from me.